is up, everybody? This is JP, your online personal trainer, and today I'm here to talk about low versus high intensity. Again, I'm going to try to make this video shorter than I normally do with my other videos. It's kind of hard because there's a lot to say about this shit. I mean, there's just a lot. I mean, it's exercise science, and exercise as a whole is a very complicated subject, and I know my videos have been longer than what most people would like to see, but I mean, I don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about. This is probably going to be a long video too. So yeah, so again, if you could just skim through it. If you have a question, you can place it down below. I will answer it, or you can message me on my Facebook, JP Personal Trainer. Yeah, so today I'm going to talk about low versus high intensity. And for people who are already in exercise science or who already have a personal trainer certification, when I mean intensity, in this video, I'm not talking about a percentage of your 1 rep max. And it's gonna, yes, it is gonna relate. When I mean intensity, is gonna relate to a higher percentage of your 1 rep max, you're right. But when it comes to like absolute strength training, like closer to your 1 rep max, like the most you can push in one force, like your 1 rep max for a squat or your 1 rep max for a deadlift, that actually doesn't apply to this. It's honestly kind of the opposite. But again, when I mean intensity for this video, I mean strenuous. So I mean lower intensity exercise. I mean something that's not as difficult, something that is not as hard. Like for example, walking, we can all agree for most people, 99% of people, walking is not very strenuous, it's not very intense. Whereas superset of back squats with immediately followed by jumping squats is probably something a lot more intense. So that's what I mean in this video. But I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of both and when not you should do them. Okay, starting with low intensity. Again, examples of low intensity, just so you know, and remember, low and high is relative to the individual. For some people, high intensity may be jogging. Jogging may be hard. Some people can't jog for more than a minute. I mean, it's not bad. It's not good. I mean, of course, it's bad that you don't want to be at that health, but I mean, everyone has to start somewhere. So if you're planning on looking at working out, it's good that you're starting. But for low intensity, I mean, generally, low intensity activities are things like walking for almost everybody. For people who do exercise, jogging is relatively low intensity. Like weightlifting at 50% of your 1 rep max is usually more muscular endurance. If you're going like around 50% of your 1 rep max, if you're going like 40% of your 1 rep max, that can be relatively light, and then you may be able to do a lot of reps with that, and you most likely will be. But so those are things that are like low intensity, things that you do for a longer duration. If it's higher intensity, you're not going to be able to do it for that long. Low intensity, you could think about it. Walking, you could do it for a long time. Standing is low intensity, things like that. But for low intensity exercises, they are better for beginners. Again, if you take someone who's never exercised or who hasn't exercised in a long time, they took a big break, they fell off, or whatever it is, again, you don't want to bring them into doing high intensity stuff. One, it could potentially be extremely dangerous, like it could cause there could be fatal consequences. I mean, in a worst case scenario, death could happen. But in not such a fatal scenario, I mean, again, the dizziness, fainting, again, overtraining can easily happen. You're going to have a point of, you're not going to get, the whole point of working out is to become stronger, to become better, to gain muscle, whatever it is. If you start someone from doing nothing to go at high intensity workouts, they're not going to see any positives and bonuses and pluses. There's no point of working out at that point. So again, it's better for beginners because one, it acclimates them to the workout environment. It gets their body used to working out again, and it'll prevent injuries or dangerous things happening. Two, again, low intensity could just be sport specific. For example, a marathon runner, a lot of their workouts are going to be low intensity. I'm not saying that they're not going to do high intensity. High intensity could be good. Don't get me wrong. Don't twist my words there. But generally, a marathon runner is going to be running a lot. Long distances, not high intensity stuff. 10 miles, 8 miles, 26 miles, stuff like that. That's stuff that they do over a long period of time, and that's not very intense, which is why they do it for a long time. So again, you might just be training low, not because it's easy, but because it's for your sport, depending for you. Again, for low intensity, it's to prevent certain disorders. For example, if you're someone with high blood pressure, you're not going to do high intensity exercises to help prevent high blood pressure. That's probably going to be extremely ineffective, and in certain circumstances that could actually worsen your blood pressure. But So for someone who has high blood pressure, maybe you have, or maybe someone you know has high blood pressure, low intensity like cardio or low intensity muscular endurance training will actually benefit the individual, because again, you're training in that energy system. You're training your cardiovascular system to be more efficient and utilizing oxygen. So overall, low intensity is better for certain disorders like that. Yeah, and again, it's the same thing, and it kind of goes hand in hand with better for a beginner. Someone who's a beginner, maybe a beginner has an overweight problem. They can't jump straight into doing high intensity exercises. And then also too, just for low intensity exercises, specifically cardio, like over like 10, 15, 20-minute cardio sessions, up to 20 minutes, or more towards 20 minutes actually. But low intensity, longer duration cardio is one of the most important factors for determining health. It is easily one of the most important factors for determining health. What that means is, as humans, we are meant to utilize oxygen, and our goal is to be able to utilize oxygen efficiently. When we breathe, we should be able to use oxygen to generate ATP, and ATP it's adenosine triphosphate. It's what we directly use for things like muscular contractions. So if we can't do that efficiently, the main thing we do as humans is breathe. If we can't do that efficiently, then we're not going to have a long lifespan. We're not going to have a good quality of life. So again, cardiovascular fitness, how well you can, like I said, do low intensity exercise. For example, if you do high intensity exercise like weightlifting and sprints, but you can't run 2 miles to save your life, or your 1.5 time is horrible, or jogging, you just can't jog for more than a minute, that's probably bad. I would definitely classify you as someone who is maybe not a healthy individual. Even if you can squat a lot of weight, it doesn't matter. You're probably not extremely healthy of an individual. Again, because cardiovascular fitness is basically the #1 determinant for overall health. If you don't have a good cardiovascular system, you're probably not a healthy person. But again, that's just about low intensity cardio, and all the stuff that I said right there isn't necessary that you have to do only low intensity or that you have to do it at all. I'll talk about that later. And again, examples: jog, walk, weightlifting at 50% of your 1 rep max. Okay, now high intensity cardio. Again, not cardio, but anything high intensity. For low intensity and high intensity, it's not necessarily cardio or weightlifting. For example, you could have low intensity weightlifting, like I said, 50% of your 1 rep max. And when I say cardio, a lot of people correlate it straight to low intensity. But for example, for high intensity, which we're about to talk about right now, sprints is cardio, but it's high intensity. It's extremely high intensity. Things like that, again, it's not necessarily cardio means low. So examples: sprints or weightlifting at or above, probably above, but at or above 65% of your 1 rep max. Again, 65% is more on the low side, but if you're a bodybuilder, or you're probably going to be aiming around 70 to 80% of your 1 rep max while you're lifting. That's high intensity, especially the low rest periods. For bodybuilders, this is going to make it extremely, it's going to be a high metabolic stress. So again, weightlifting at or above 65% of your 1 rep max is going to be more towards high intensity. So again, the benefits of doing high intensity exercise: burn more calories due to excess post-oxygen consumption. For example, when you do high intensity stuff, like I just said, I'll use the example again, sprints or weightlifting, bodybuilding type weightlifting. It's such a strenuous exercise that when you are done doing the exercise, like let's just say your workout's done and over with, your body has to consume more oxygen to bring it back to a pre-exercise state. So, but the energy that is required to bring it back to a pre-exercise state is high. It's high. It's higher than what happens with low intensity exercise. So basically, when you do high intensity exercise of any kind, due to the excess post-oxygen consumption, the higher oxygen consumed after your workout, which goes into our next thing, it increases the calories that you use and to bring it back to a pre-exercise state, which overall increases your resting metabolic rate. So, and this leads to more and more things, again, like burning more calories. So for example, if your goal is to lose fat and you are already healthy, let's just say you've been doing low intensity exercise for a while. Again, you have to keep in mind the things that I said about low intensity. If you're safe and you've been working out for a while, but you haven't tried high intensity exercise and your goal is to burn fat, high intensity exercise is definitely much better than low intensity exercise at burning fat and getting a better body composition. So again, so if you want to increase to put it simply, if you want to increase the calories that you burn in throughout the day, do high intensity exercise. If you want to burn fat, do high intensity exercise. But again, keep that in mind. Again, don't go and do that. Ask yourself, well, have I exercised lately? Am I ready for that? If you're not ready for it, then I wouldn't do it yet. Okay, again, with high intensity exercise, the next thing is that it is more time efficient than low intensity exercise. As I said over there, low intensity exercise is something that is not that hard, but you do for a longer period of time. Think about marathon runners. Marathons take forever to do, hours on end to do. So that's not very time efficient. If it's not high intensity, and let's just say it's low intensity, you can't do it for a short amount of time. If it's not that difficult and you do it for a short amount of time, that's basically you're doing nothing. You're not putting your body under a certain amount of stress. So the less intense it is, the more you should do of it. So on the other end of the spectrum, the higher intensity something is, the less time you have to do it for you to see some type of effect. For example, sprints, if you just do, let's just say you have your cardio day and you just do 10 to 15 maximal sprints of like, let's just say you do 8 sprints of 100 yards. You just go 100 yards straight across, you take a minute break or a 90-second break, and then you do it straight across again. That's not that long of a time. That's like a 10-minute workout versus, like I said, someone who's running 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 miles. It's going to take a long time to do that. And you don't even have to do that much. If you just did 5 to 7 maximal sprints, if you did that 3 times a week, 2 or 3 times a week, that's a pretty good workout. But again, you don't need to do that much if you're high intensity. So if you're short on time, all those people who use that excuse, I don't have enough time, then you're not working out hard enough, in my opinion. Honestly, you shouldn't even be in the gym for as long as you think you need to be if you're working out hard enough. Also, the next this is probably one of the most important for a lot of people, besides losing fat or losing weight. That's a big one for people. But for high intensity exercise, increasing muscle mass or getting stronger. You cannot do that with low intensity exercise. Yes, if you do muscular endurance training and you have done nothing before, you are probably going to add a little bit of muscle mass, but eventually you're going to hit that plateau of not being able to gain more muscle or the most muscle that you want. So again, for bodybuilders, for someone who just wants to look jacked or ripped, or someone who just wants to get stronger, get a bigger bench, you can only do that with higher intensity exercise. So again, think about that. If your goal is to get big arms, if your goal is to get big legs, if you're some person and you want to get a big butt or whatever, if you want to get a big sculpted chest, you have to do that with high intensity exercise. And that is done with weightlifting above 65% of your 1 rep max. And those numbers are just approximate. Again, you could train at 60% of your 1 rep max, but if that was a superset with something, it could possibly work. But generally, if you take your 1 rep max, your maximum, and you take 65% of that weight, you want to be training with that weight or more to see, again, increases in muscle mass or increases in strength. Again, there's a lot more to that to gain muscle or get stronger, but that's for a whole other video. I've done videos on that. I'll probably do more videos in the future on that. But right now, it's just why high intensity exercise is good. And again, one of the last things is that it's sports specific, just like low intensity exercise. For example, if you're a basketball player, a football player, and you only do low intensity exercise, I guarantee you right now you are not going to be successful. Football and basketball take explosive movements. You have to be strong, quick off your feet. Again, like I said, explosive. Like think of a lineman, they got to be explosive off the line. Think of a wide receiver or a quarterback. They got to be able to make reads and calls and be explosive. Even baseball players, again, when they think of a pitcher has to be explosive when he throws the pitch to throw extremely fast. So if a baseball player always throws kind of half-ass and just like lobs it doesn't go that hard every single time, you think that they're going to be ready? Not at all. So again, you got to think about the sport that you're trying to do. Again, examples are sprints and weightlifting with 65% of your 1 rep max or higher. Again, keep these things in mind. If you have any more questions, let me know below. Again, this is a complicated subject. I try to make it simple for you. Those are the benefits right there. So classify yourself. If you're a beginner, go low. If you're not a beginner and you want to burn some fat, go some high intensity stuff. But again, if you like these videos, please like it below, share it with a friend, subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Again, if you could get a friend to sit there and click the subscribe button, again, I'd really like it. I put a lot of time into these videos, but until next time, peace.